After 8 years of Republican leadership under Chris Christie, New Jersey has a new Democratic governor and a new very public opponent of President Donald Trump. Phil Murphy began his tenure as New Jersey governor with an address in which he criticized the president on a number of issues, including immigration, and in which he laid out an ambitious progressive agenda. In his first official act after taking office, Murphy signed an executive order supporting equal pay for women. Another executive order called for a review of New Jersey's medical marijuana program, which the new governor wants to expand. Murphy has also made diversity one of the cornerstones of his young administration. But many in New Jersey are skeptical of the new governor. He is a millionaire former Goldman Sachs executive who has never before held political office, a profile very similar to that of former Governor Jon Corzine, the man Chris Christie defeated in 2009. And voter turnout on Election Day was at a record low. So who is Phil Murphy, and can he find a way to turn New Jersey's troubled finances around? Joining me now to answer these questions is Steve Adubato, the host of NJTV's State of Affairs and a Metro Focus contributor. Steve, welcome back to the program.
Great to be here, Raf.
So, Steve, I know you had the opportunity to interview Phil Murphy before the election. What's your take on the guy and his progressive agenda?
He's engaging, he's enthusiastic, he's passionate. If you ever look at the video of him on election night, he bounded onto the stage, almost dancing. He is someone who believes deeply. He is someone who has a progressive agenda. Some people call it liberal, I don't care what you call it, but he really thinks deeply about those who have the least and the role of government to help them the most. The biggest challenge, which is obvious, Raf. You want to do all these things, you want to have free community college for folks. You want to have the state provide more state aid to all the school districts across the state. Not many people are against that. The question is, where does the money come from? That is the greatest challenge that Governor Murphy faces.
So how is he going to square that circle? Because you and I were been doing shows for decades, actually. And for all those years...
We would ask that all the time.
Yeah. You know, I mean, and the biggest problem, of course, is the public pension fund. Oh, how does he deal with that while maintaining this expensive, let's admit it, expensive progressive agenda?
You know, Raf, it's such an important question. And because Metro Focus looks at those kinds of issues, and people say, oh, that's in the weeds, it's not important. You know how important that is? You've got an $80 billion, what's called unfunded liability.
And that's a conservative estimate.
Conservative. Let's explain to folks what that means. Governor Murphy comes in, and you have these tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of state employees, retired employees. They're $80 billion in the hole in terms of being able to pay those people off. And so Governor Christie, whatever people think of him, did a pretty darn good job of adding more state dollars into the public employee pension fund. 2010, 2011, there was a reform of that. They asked state employees to give back more, to give more in terms of their health care benefits, to work longer. The retirement age was increased. But the fact is they're working from such a hole. Governor Murphy's in such a hole there. I don't think he wants to ask the public employees for more. But the question is, where's the money going to come from to put more state dollars into the pension fund? I know he's talked about increasing taxes on millionaires. Can you do that in a state like New Jersey after the federal tax reform that in New Jersey and New York, you can no longer deduct your state and local taxes after 10 grand? Yeah. With property taxes being the highest in the nation in New Jersey, it's going to be tough. But Governor Murphy, last time I heard, is committed to increasing taxes on millionaires and using those dollars to pay for a lot of programs.
Okay, we'll see if he can do that. You know, as I said in the introduction, he's made diversity a keystone of his administration. Talk about that.
It is the most diverse administration I have ever seen, Raf. People give a lot of lip service to diversity. What I give Governor, Murphy credit for is he went out of his way with his transition team to select people that they didn't just look like New Jersey in terms of women, minorities, religious backgrounds, geographic backgrounds. He took people from Washington, from New York, and they're talented people. Now, the question is, can they adapt to the Jersey way of doing things, getting things done? That's another question, but it is incredibly diverse, and he gets points for that. What's going to be interesting for him in that cabinet, is how do they work with Senate President Steve Sweeney? Yep. You and I interviewed him so many times on our show, Capitol Report. He's a tough guy. He's been there a long time. Some people think he's the most powerful Senate president in the nation. He is not really with the governor on the question of the millionaire's tax. Right. The new Speaker of the House, Craig Coughlin, not convinced that he's with the governor. You mentioned legalization of marijuana. I'm not convinced he's with him on that. So here's my point. The ability of Governor Murphy and his administration to deal with a powerful Senate president and a new Speaker of the House to get things done, Governor Murphy is going to learn, I hope he does, that he has to deal with the so-called power brokers, the people who help put legislators in office, the behind-the-scenes folks. I don't know if he's a deal maker by background. I know he comes from the Goldman Sachs background, but deal making in New Jersey politically is, I'm sure it's distasteful to people, because Governor Murphy wants to do it on the merits. But the reality is, if you don't get those personal relationships with the power brokers behind the scenes who influence state legislators, you can't get things done. I hate to say it's a Jersey way of doing things, but it's a Jersey way of doing things.
And as I said, that was one of Jon Corzine's problems.
He wasn't good at it.
He could.
That's a big difference. The ability to do that, particularly when he has to go out on the road and sell his plan for free college, for community college, free community college, increase the minimum wage up to $15, more state aid to all the school districts in the state, the millionaire's tax. I think he's going to be in a lot of town hall meetings, and that personality, that ability to engage people, his enthusiasm, particularly working off a script, that was not Jon Corzine. I think it is Phil Murphy.
All right. Well, we'll see how it turns out. Steve, thanks so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure, Raf.